Hi, my name is Vaishali Nayak. I work as Head of Software Engineering in Digital Technology. As a child, I always loved maths and problem solving, so technology was a natural choice for me. So I feel pleased to be a part of an industry that makes all the innovative ideas a reality. I started at Sky in 2011 as a software engineer. After a few years as a software engineer, I moved into management roles. I've done 7 different roles at Sky: software engineer, technical analyst, delivery manager, and currently as a head of software engineering. So it has been a really rewarding journey working for different areas within Sky, like content platforms, global OTT, and more recently in digital technology. So I think what I've learned at Sky is there's lots of opportunities. You just have to go and seize it. I lead teams in digital service. Our ambition is to make awesome digital customer experience, and my teams play a huge role in that. While Sky is dynamic and fast-paced, it's also very collaborative and inclusive. It's fun working at Sky. There's always new ideas, new opportunities that you can try out. Personally, from a career progression perspective, I've been able to try out many different roles and grow as an engineer, grow as a person, and I'm constantly learning all the time. Sky's vision is creating an awesome digital experience for our customers, and I'm really excited to be a part of that vision. My teams will work on this ambition and make it a reality. Sky's value of believing in better is something we always strive every day. I'm the chair of the Tech Women Committee at Sky. Our aim is to build a supportive community for women in technology, product and data, and other areas of Sky. We have a group of passionate women and male allies who help us build a supportive community and create initiatives to attract, progress, and retain female talent. I think we have a long way in getting women into technology. We have just started in this journey, and technology is also not the first choice for young girls, so there's a lot to do in that area as well. So in Tech Women, we focus on inspiring the next generation. So we recently had our Women in Engineering Day, and the theme that we chose was inspiring the next generation. So we had schoolgirls coming in, giving them an experience of what does it mean to work in technology, and giving them a real idea of what it means to work in technology. Technology doesn't always mean coding. There are many other different roles in technology. So there's many different opportunities and avenues that women can actually try out. So there's nothing to be scared of, and also showing that there are so many women already working here, and we are really thriving and supporting each other in getting more talent into technology.
Welcome everyone. This morning, it's a late morning session. We're not going to talk really much about technology in this one, but really is about people and collaboration. How do we actually innovate at Sky? And how do we do this working together internally, of course, but also with partners outside, with startups and businesses that help us delivering this innovation going forward. First of all, introduce myself before introducing my colleagues and friends that will help me in this session. My name is Andrea Zappia. I'm the CEO and EVP for new businesses and new markets. I have a really fun job at Sky, and after having been the CEO of Sky Italia for many years, I've now taken the opportunity to try to help the company in developing its next leg of growth. So with my teams, we don't work on the next couple of years. We tend to look forward to 2030 and how do we create growth for Sky in that time frame. And we do this looking at new markets, and we're looking also at new businesses as well. In the new markets, you probably heard about Sky Showtime, which is launching in less than 20 days on the 20th of this month in the Nordics, and quickly following to Netherlands and other markets immediately after. It's an exciting joint venture we did with Paramount, and it's a startup, but it's a very well-funded startup that has the ambition to take Sky and its content across the rest of Europe where we are not today. At the same time, we are also working on the glass indication, which is expanding the technology we developing and keep on improving here to the rest of the world. We've done a deal with Foxtel that's going to launch next year. We're closing another big one soon, and we're finding really an exciting appreciation for that. At the same time, we have also been working to launch new business line in our existing markets, and there is one that will come to market very soon that you'll see, in which the team, Jay and the team, worked in making an acquisition of a startup that will be underpinning those capabilities. So as you see, whether it's something that we create fully internally or something which we do together with others, being able to work together, create the right team, the right collaboration is fundamental. Our teams are actually pretty small, and without being able to resource internally or find resources externally, we would never be able to do any of what we are doing or what we're going to do. So today we'll try to go under the skin of this together with my colleagues and friends. Jenny, Eimear, Jesse, and Andy, if they can join immediately, briefly introduce them before exchanging a few questions with them. Jenny works with me, and we have been working together for now 2.5 years, and she's the Sky Group Director of Growth. She identifies, nurture, and then accompany ideas and partners for our growth ideas going forward. Eimear, he's the head of startup investment and partnership at Sky. The title says everything. He's also been with us actually only for 1 year, right?
Yeah, coming up to a year.
And he had a great experience before at Centrica, and is helping us, and we'll talk about it later, in changing our approach with the collaboration with startups from which was traditionally about investment into investment and actually partnership and creating commercial relationship. Jesse Sheeman. Jesse is the real startupper here. He's I was very curious to understand how you move from Deloitte into creating your own company, and with Papercup, which we invested a few years ago, is helping taking Sky News around the world with new languages. And at the end, last but not least, as I say, Andy is actually the person who probably worked on more new project transformations, internal startups, if you want, in the company. He's been probably the only one who is nearly as old as me. No, maybe I'm much younger. I've been in the company nearly 20 years. It's only 12, I think, they've been with us. So you're going to get there. So thank you for you to be with us this morning. Jenny, let's start with you. So tell us a bit about your role and how do you start when you look for a great idea that can drive Sky success in the future?
Yes, so I sit very much in the new businesses part of Andrea's New Businesses and New Markets world. And that's really about launching new services, new experiences, I guess with two key purposes. One is around driving our broader platform ecosystem, very much around glass, which hopefully you all have seen in the market, which is very exciting. And related, also looking where we can drive new revenue streams outside of our existing core business. So that's very much taking a starting point of almost what is Sky's secret sauce, I guess. What are our capabilities and our assets that are unique to Sky, that are really in our DNA? And how do we apply those to new sectors? Where are the sectors where we can really bring something of unique value? And that's kind of always the starting point.
So when you do this, how would you define an innovative environment? What are you looking for when you look for innovation?
So when I'm looking for innovation, I think it's basically two things. Normally I have three things, but I'm going to have two things. One is it's really simple, right? One's about openness. So it's really about the market that we're in is evolving. Our competitive landscape is evolving. Increasingly, we are up against big tech like everybody else in direct competition. And these are incredibly well-funded companies that are very good at placing kind of strategic bets on the chips on the board, and they're willing to take risks, and they're willing to sometimes fail, but they're willing to take those bets, and they do it at pace. So I think for us, one of our challenges as a very large and successful company is how do we continue to evolve our culture in that landscape? And I think the two things for me is really around just an openness to doing things differently, right? We've been very successful in the past, but the world is changing, and if we're going to evolve with it, we've got to think in different ways. We've got to embrace new ideas and new ways of working. And I think frequently looking externally is a great way to do that. And startups in particular have a lot of practices that we can really learn from. So it's really embracing that. And the other one I think is this idea of just being able to take a calculated risk. So I think Sky has been, again, phenomenally successful, but we do kind of a few really big things, and we do them every few years, and we do them exceptionally well. But again, as we look towards diversifying out our portfolio, we've got to think about moving into new areas in a different way. We've got to be willing to take more risks. We've got to be willing to fail. And be okay with that. And I think the mantra of fail fast, so we don't try to break stuff, usually, but I do think there's something around being willing to fail and really take the learnings. And sometimes that means you've got to be willing to let go of something because maybe it just didn't work, or maybe you pivot, or maybe you come up with a new investment thesis or a new approach. But I think it's just being willing to free yourself to take that risk is incredibly important for us as we think about the future.
Just before moving to Eimear, one important thing I think is that Sky, like most of organization, is a changing organization. And what drove us success in the past doesn't necessarily will drive success in the future. Actually, probably will not. We're going to talk about this change now with Eimear in a second. But back to what Jenny said, I think one thing I've seen in myself personally is that we have been always very good at creating big success, right? And we told ourselves we are good when we put all our effort into one thing and we get that up and everyone is behind it. Now, the reality is that with the world changing, we have to be much more nimble and able also to take maybe smaller or bigger risk and accept failure and learn quickly from that. We have been really scared about failure in the past. We don't want to fail at all, but we're really taking much more, I think, well-thought risks sometimes today in order to really push a bit the envelope more than in the past. Now, as following up on this, Eimear, you have witnessed and driven a change in our approach in partnership, particularly with startups. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, for sure. So, Sky has been pretty active in the kind of innovation startup ecosystems for quite some time. So, we've been a pretty active investor across North America, Europe, and Israel for coming on to a decade. So, we've managed to accumulate quite a tremendous amount of experience and expertise and knowledge in this space. And I think our approach when we began was to lead with investment, so taking a minority stake in an early stage company, and then really work hard post-investment to try and develop those commercial partnerships and relationships with those organizations, which, as I'm sure you guys appreciate, comes with a tremendous amount of challenges, difficulties, all sorts of stuff. The shift in our approach now, and what I think we've learned over that time, is that actually a lot of the value that we extract both for ourselves but also for our partners is actually the partnership itself and not so much the investment. So, not to say that we don't invest and we won't invest, but actually what we want to do is kind of reprioritize our approach and really lead with a kind of partnership conversation and discussion. And then at a later date, kind of really talk about and invest in companies that we think it makes sense to invest. And I think that thesis is proving true, certainly to what Jenny was talking about in terms of how we think about Sky of the future, as we think about our platform and how we think about expanding that platform. I think partnerships are absolutely key in order to do that, whether it's from a technology perspective, whether it's from a capability that we're missing, or if it's entering into a new market that we don't really know too much about. Having that symbiotic relationship with early stage companies and startups is absolutely crucial.
Can you elaborate a bit more on how do we work, and how can we help? Maybe some examples, right? Because you're talking about really deepening into our own culture and people. Creating success is not just about the tech. We find, we collaborate, the investment you put is really about how do we allow entrepreneurs, innovators, to find and drive success, and sometimes even hopefully change a bit how we operate?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I guess, I mean, to start with, I mean, what do we bring and what value can we offer to startups? You know, obviously our scale, I mean, you know, Sky is a really well-respected brand. You know, obviously we have tremendous amounts of customers. We also have the kind of global footprint now sitting within the Comcast family, all of which is, I think, a tremendous asset and very unique to Sky. In terms of some of the more practical things in terms of how we work, you know, I think we've had some great successes, but along the way over that kind of decade of working with early stage companies, there's also been a tremendous amount of challenges and lessons learned, which I think is where a lot of the value sits. And so, you know, a great example of that is one of the companies that we invested in based here in the UK, who are kind of helping Sky to develop kind of a novel, innovative service and proposition, which hopefully will launch soon. It was just tremendously difficult navigating such a complicated business. You know, Sky is vast, it's big, it's complicated, its processes are challenging, people change, you know, there's a lot of attrition, people moving around. And so, you know, our team, and my team specifically, kind of really helps to try and navigate that complexity. And I think fundamentally what we want to try and do is break down as many of the barriers as possible, you know, whether it's from a process perspective like procurement, whether it's data security, you know, whatever it might be in terms of just things that are really important and we can't neglect, but really what we want to try and do is just make that as seamless as possible so that it's as easy for these companies to integrate into Sky as possible and kind of come to market.
Now, just to top on this, I've seen personally experience where actually we didn't do a great job, right? We found someone that we thought was a great investor trying to incorporate too quickly into Sky and then ended up not really respecting their original culture, what they really could bring us very effectively. The good bit is that we learn. So more recently, I mean, we have really challenged ourselves the way we do it and give more time and respected more the original culture of the startup we were investing in, how to integrate it into Sky. And I think that one of the thing I really like about our company is the fact that we really try to keep on learning every day on this and challenging really the way we operate. And even today, I mean, Emma mentioned how big it is, the company with now NBC and Comcast, and that's on one side is a great opportunity. Other side is an added complexity to manage and to run. But I mean, I must say we're doing really great progress in trying to do, and we find great collaboration. Jenny particularly, I mean, works a lot on the other side of the ocean with our colleagues, and we're finding very open-minded approach from both sides. Thank you, Eimear. Jesse, Paper Cup. I mean, actually, I still remember, amongst the other things, I'm also work with Sky News. I mean, with John Riley and the team there, and it's my passion. You're really helping Sky News to increase its reach in a very efficient way. The first time, already 2 years ago, when I heard that Spanish Sky News cover, it was fantastic to hear. Can you tell us more how the relationship is with Sky, how you come up to this, and how you found yourself working with Sky to be as an experience?
Yeah. First of all, you need to listen to the Italian version and give us feedback. Then that'll be the real test. Just to give a quick background on what we do. So we don't manufacture physical paper cups. Enough suppliers reach out to us that I can suggest a few if you do have a need. What we do is we want to make videos watchable in any language. And we do that by using AI to create synthetic voices that are specifically made for video. So think AI dubbing effectively. The idea is you take a voice like that you can hear on Amazon Alexa or Google Home, but we've instead created our own voices that are actually suited for video, which means that people would actually want to watch them. And instructional and news content was one of the first forays that we wanted to make into the world of content because you don't have to capture as much emotion, performance, and expressivity as you would have to do in a drama or a comedy. And that's why Sky was always quite enticing for us. And I think, if you even if you just pause and look at where we are today, we've reached probably over 42 million people in Spanish-speaking countries just by virtue of the content that we've translated. Now, there's still a lot more to do in how we build up the presence and how you do it more consistently. But even if we step back right now and say 40 million people were reached through Sky News in Spanish, that's an accomplishment in its own right. And hats off to Sky for being an early adopter, because the idea of synthetic voices, the idea of AI, especially in media, people oftentimes run away from and are averse to. So I think that there was definitely this strong appetite that was quite encouraging to see. I think we can even show a video as well, just to give people a sense of what it actually looks like and sounds like, so you can get a flavor of it.
The route is a completely illegal smuggling route. There's no danger from officialdom. Your danger is always from gangs.
Había dos muchachas. Una tenía 16 años y la otra 14. Sabían que el viaje era peligroso. Lo que no creo que supieran era cuán peligroso podía resultar.
La verdad es que muchas de aquellas chicas podían ser violadas y forzadas a la esclavitud sexual. Y aquello era verdaderamente desgarrador.
So the original version, the English was the original, and then that generated one that you heard, sorry, the Spanish one was actually a generated voice, or a set of generated voices.
It's fantastic. So actually, I never asked you why Paper Cup, the name.
Any guesses? Anyone know why? Tin can game. So it's basically the string that attaches the two cups, the most elementary form of communication.
Ah, that's fantastic.
I made the first logo on PowerPoint, and I'm not a designer, I can tell you.
That's very nice. So I mean, by the way, it's still amazing. Every time I listen to this, this is so realistic. And I actually, you said about the emotions. Actually, the combination with music allows to deliver an emotion as well. So you're achieving that brilliantly. So tell us a bit more your relationship, and what do you find that Sky is doing well in collaborating with you? What we should do better also going forward?
I think what works well is the question at the willingness at the outset is always open. So we might talk about the idea of saying, hey, if we can ingest some of the Sky News data, it can help train our models. Or maybe we should speak with the team in Germany to look at scripts for Sky Sports that we can figure out how to better accommodate for sports content. You can come up with 5,000 objections as to why that wouldn't work. And a lot of them are probably legitimate. But what's been very refreshing consistently across Sky has been, okay, actually let's figure out what and how we can do this, not what are the main issues that we need to overcome. And for that, I think if you don't ask that, if you don't have that inspiration, that mentality at the outset, you're just doomed to fail and stop. And to be honest, we have to be so selective with who we work with and partner with, because we can't go through 6-month cycles of trying to figure out how to find German scripts for German sports content. So I think having that initial willingness, excitement, and ambition has probably been something that's definitely worth celebrating. In terms of what can function better, it's a good question. Probably, I think where, and maybe this is just by nature of Sky being such a big organization, but knowing how different countries, well, between Italy, Germany, the UK, as well as different departments within those countries interoperate, I think would probably be helpful, because sometimes we find ourselves, or myself, trying to navigate and connect the right dots. I surprisingly have to do that with, I realize, probably with most media companies. Well, most big companies. It's just a function of being just of that sheer size. I think that's probably something that we could probably do better on.
It's a very good point Jess is raising, and it's also partially, and some of you know this very well, by the fact that the way Sky has become a single company. The reality is, you know, the job of pay TV has been traditionally a very heavy-duty work to be done in single geographies, in single countries. So the three Skies, have different origins and different. They came to market in different timing. They also had different shareholder structure up until a short time ago, and therefore these differences are also part of the. I think one of the great value that Sky can bring, because the roots and the stories history of Italy, Germany, and the UK are very different, and they enrich each other, can be an issue sometimes. So we actually have now accelerated this process at the moment. We integrated the business much more, and we'll do even more. So hopefully what Jesse's finding will be less and less, but it's part of also what has been our strength. Thank you, Jesse. We come back later to some of the questions from the audience. Andy. So we've been talking particularly with Emer and Jesse about Sky and the way we collaborate with startups and how we invest or partner with them. You have a different experience. You joined Sky 12 years ago. You have worked on some of our bigger internal startups, from AdSmart to Now TV, and now we are in the building of Now today. You've also led a lot of transformation process. As we talk about collaboration and achieving success through joining forces on complex projects, what would you think are the key elements you look for to drive this success? What are the key ingredients you're looking for?
Thank you, Andrea. So just as a way of introduction, so I've been at Sky 12 years, as you've now heard. And the first 8 years, I was leading transformation teams, so internal transformation teams, which took on board all the big change programs that we had to do. And I think as we've alluded to already, Sky's a big organization, and it got bigger as we went through the acquisition of Germany and Italy. It's got bigger again with Comcast and NBCU. Jesse, to your point, connecting the dots, sometimes I feel my role is head of dot connection, because there are a lot of dots to connect as we think about Sky. So, and then in the last 3 years, I've been looking after OTT, and I'll come back to OTT in a minute. But if I look back at some of the big change programs that I've led and run, I was trying to think, what are the key ingredients for success, particularly when you look at it through a lens of collaboration. And I came up with 4. There probably are a load more, but the 4 things that I've seen work repeatedly in terms of how to drive collaboration across all those dots you talk about. Point 1 is have a really, really, really clear vision of what outcome you're trying to achieve. Whether that be a business outcome, whether you're doing it for a customer, but be able to articulate that vision really clearly. Because I think having context about what you're trying to achieve as a sort of like cornerstone for anything you want to do is really, really important. So spending a little bit of time up front articulating that, getting it down in paper, and being able to articulate it when anyone asks you, what are we doing here? Point 2 is around the leadership. And usually a clear vision is really well articulated by great leadership. And so when I look at leadership for big change programs, I usually look at about 3 or 4 big roles. When I start it. Firstly, it's the sponsor. Who's the main person that's going to benefit from this big change? And who's going to be the sort of like advocate for this vision? And we really need to get a really strong sponsor, or business lead, you might call it, at one corner of it. The next one is the role that I used to play quite a lot, which is one of sort of end-to-end program directors. So someone who's going to join the dots and bring it all together and be worried about the end-to-end journey that we're on. And whether that be a technology side all the way to the people change and everything in between. So we need someone who's knowledgeable about how to do that and can join those dots together. Because of the nature of the work we do in Sky, there's always something around technology, so you need a really strong technology lead. So that underpins most 99.9% of the things we do at Sky when it's big change, is technology. And more importantly as well, the product or the service that we're providing either to the business or to the customer. So if I get those 4 sort of like people together, so I get the visionary, the sponsor, the person that can really articulate it. I get the program director, the one that's gluing it all together and knitting all the dots together. I get the product lead and the technology lead, and they work well as a group. I've got my foundations in place. So I'm ready to go then. I've got a clear vision, I've got good leadership, now what? And the next bit, I'm going to use an analogy of a cook. For those of you who watch MasterChef, I'm sure you have, and you see that scary moment where those contestants get put in front of a load of ingredients and they say, come up with your best meal. And you think, how on earth am I going to do that? And you can see it rattling around in their head. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? And I always think sometimes when you've got leadership for a big change, it's a bit like facing all those ingredients and knowing then which of the ingredients you're going to pick to achieve that outcome. And the great thing about Sky is we've already got a load of ingredients ready to go, and we get more and more and more. But you don't always have all of them. And so those ingredients could be technology, they could be departments, they could be people, but quite often we need partners as well, because we don't have a full suite. And that's when we need the startups, the partnerships, the external support, where we need that ingredient to bring it together and achieve that outcome. So next bit, understand your ingredients. So that's number 3. So make sure you understand whether it's people, departments, technologies, partnerships, startups, whatever it is, to achieve that outcome. And then the last thing and the most important thing for me is then once you know those ingredients, bring them together and establish one team. And that is really, really important so that everyone's pulling in the same direction. You've got your vision, you're clear on your leadership, you now know your ingredients, but what do you do to bring together one team? When we talk about things like kick-off meetings or away days, or let's all go out and have a meal together and get to know each other. But by building those relationships across the ingredients early in the process, that builds trust. Once you've got trust and you know how to work together and you know how you're working well together, it doesn't really matter what challenges you face through the journey then, because you've got a great team together to overcome them. So if I was to reflect on those ingredients for success and the things I've seen work at Sky again and again and again as we've done big transformation, it's those 4 things. Just to summarize again, clear vision, really well articulated. What's the outcome, the business outcome, the customer outcome? Strong leadership that can articulate the vision and people can look up to and follow. Know your ingredients. Who are the people? Who are the teams? What's the technologies? What's the partnerships? And then build a one-team environment to bring it all together. And you get that in place, and you can move mountains, believe me. So that was that was my summary of sort of the key ingredients.
It's a great summary, and everyone can pick up all the ingredients of some of them. There are actually 2 which I really loved in your description. The first one is when you go to MasterChef and you go into the big pantry. And one thing in 20 years, I had 19 with Sky, is that I always felt we could do anything we wanted. Like, you know, when you are that participant, the contestant at MasterChef, and you get into this, and you might have, what do I choose to do that? And with Sky is a bit like that. I mean, and even with the job I've been doing the last couple of years, really, we can go after everything, right? Not just because we have a lot of those ingredients, but going to second point, is because we are able to create trust with the outside world. I'm finding this element of trust really important, not just because of the one you put together in a team that wants to deliver something, but also because it's the credibility we are able to take with us when we go and talk to partners. I'll give you an example I'm seeing myself now as we talk about glass. You know, you're seeing glass today, and we are syndicating, I mentioned before, we're doing it with Foxtel. But there is basically almost any CEOs of MVPDs or telecoms at the moment where we connect and want to talk about the glass, that open the door, welcome Sky, and said, we share the same vision, we share the same opportunities and issue we try to solve. And there is an element of trust with this company, which whoever of us go out there and meet with partners on, we take that with us, right? Which is the credibility that built over the years, which is particularly important and help us delivering. And I'll come back to it later as we talk about with our OTT. And actually I wanted to bridge from this more generic recipe as you gave to something a bit more specific. We said we are in the building of now. You were part of the team over the past 10 years. I think it's 10 years this year that now was created. We've walked a long way, and we're actually now expanding it quite a lot. I mean, as mentioned, Sky Showtime will launch in 22 new markets in a matter of 6 months. Can you go back to that experience and tell us a bit more what you have learned through that?
Yeah. So for those who don't know, it's 10 years old this year. So we were celebrating the birthday party a couple of months back. And So going back 10 years and thinking about, streaming was in its infancy really 10 years ago. The competitor set wasn't that broad, and we kicked off now as a UK project, specifically for the UK, to start investigating the sort of streaming industry and what we could do, and launched a sort of like a complementary brand to Sky. At the time, it was specifically to the UK, and then over the next few years, as Germany and Italy came on board as well, we needed some ability to expand internationally. So we think about the platform at the beginning was really focused particularly on the UK. And at that point, about 10 years ago, we partnered up and acquired a company called Acetrax, which, for those of you who know the OTT space, was a company that was providing OTT services internationally in Europe 10, 11, 12 years ago. And they were based in Portugal, and we acquired them, and they had some really great capabilities, some really great people, and a great team. And they've stayed with us. And actually, I'll come back to what they're doing today, but that Portugal team in Acetrax that we started with 10 years ago. So as we go through the years, we expanded the Now proposition, and the Now proposition to the customer was very successful, and we expanded that out to Ireland, to Italy, to Germany. So before you know it, the Sky footprint has got a Now proposition in it, and it was underpinned by common platforms and common capabilities. So at that point, it was very much a mindset of where we started with the UK pivoting to an international platform where you're starting, rather than just building projects and developing projects, you're building platforms and capabilities. And it's very much a mindset pivot to start thinking about that. So you're building once to deploy everywhere, as opposed to looking at projects in individual territories or individual departments. So roll forward a few more years, and then Comcast acquires Sky, and we're part of the family of the Comcast and NBCU and Sky. And then the opportunity came up to leverage our now OTT ingredients that we have in this underlying platform, which had already become an international platform to support Germany, Italy, and the UK. And we could use that to pivot towards Peacock. And at the time when we started, obviously the Peacock brand wasn't known at that point, and that launched in July 2020, and to great success, and it's continuing to power through in the US. So underneath those brands and underneath those slightly different propositions and underneath that content, there's a lot of shared platform and capabilities that cut across that. So again, each time we go through a larger scale move to another territory, another market, a different proposition, we're building more and more of those underlying platforms and capabilities that we know can reuse across a number of markets. And then fast forward to today, and as Andrea said, in I think it's how many days now? We've got 15 days to go, 14 days to go, and we launched Sky Showtime into a much broader set of European markets. Again, different brand, different content proposition, but under the covers, a lot of the same capabilities and platforms. So I think it's a really good example of working through a sort of like an individual project and then pivoting to sort of like a scalable technology platform that you can reuse again and again and again for different markets and slightly different propositions with different brands. I talked about Acetrax, which is the one we acquired back in the day 10 years ago. Great to say that we now have a team, a large team in Portugal, over 3 sites, and the embryonic stages of that was Acetrax, and they are a massive part of our OTT family in terms of delivering these services. And some of the key people that were there at the beginning and the founders at the beginning when we first acquired them are still there today, developing as well.
And this job has been fantastic for us because if you think about Sky Showtime, we signed the contract with Paramount of the joint venture and the investment agreement the middle of August of last year. 13 months later, we are ready to launch the first market and roll out. And by the way, I've discovered how many, not just languages, but alphabets Europe has. I think they count to 12 different alphabets. I mean, Jesse, for you would be a nightmare, I think, as you get some of these. If you got some of the Nordics languages, it's not. But again, I mean, ultimately, the technology allowed us to be quite fast into launching into so many new markets. And back to the subject of this session, actually, we had to dedicate much more time than we thought at people. Now, creating the right team and the right mix of people that could really launch this effectively has been as big as an effort as building the platform itself. Now, we only have 4 more minutes. I have potentially some more questions for you guys, but I wanted to take any question from the floor.
Can I just ask a quick one?
Of
How
course.
do you prioritize?
In general, you mean when I look at the opportunity for new business and new market, you mean? Or
So many opportunities out there.
Yeah, you're right. You're right, and it's a very good question. First of all, you have to. I always start from the end. That's my solution, right? So I try to understand where I want to be, where I need to be in 2030, right? In this specific, or the end could be anything, depending on what you're doing, and once I picture that end, I go back and understand how to achieve that. And I always say that it's like your GPS. Once you fix your destination, you might find a hurdle in between. And you have to take a detour and take a different road, but you don't change your destination, right? The GPS will drive you there. So the same, when I talk about priority, what we look at is a typical exercise to look at what are how many niches you need to get there, what are the most feasible ones, what are the most sizable ones. But ultimately, back to relationship, a lot of our job is today creating those relations, make this feasible. So the next streaming expansion will happen through another partnership. But to get to that one, we had explored 5. Ultimately, did we necessarily pick up what we thought was initially the right priority? Maybe not. But when and I think Jesse will be even better at saying this, there's a degree of pragmatism in your priority setting that you have to keep always with you. So the combination of setting your destination, being pragmatic over time, and capture opportunity is fundamental. If I think about the way Sky Italia was created, it was very opportunistic, because at the time, actually, Sky Italia was created by News Corp, and News Corp was selling its pay TV in Italy. And then Canal, who was the owner of the other Telepiù there, decided instead of buying to sell, and they bought it, and over time from seller became a buyer. Strategic, no. Opportunistic, yes. 20 years later is the leading pay TV and actually media business in the country. So yeah, define your destination and be opportunistic and pragmatic. What are your opportunities?
Thank you. With AI and machine learning becoming so important for companies like Sky, what are the main challenges that Sky is facing to build those capabilities? And what are you doing about it? Is it mainly about building internally, partnering, acquiring companies? What are the priorities?
Anyone of you want to pick up this one?
Yeah, I can have a go for a start for 10. So I think it's a good question. So I think it's a bit of everything. So it's build, buy, and partner. So I think that's really important, because I think there's certain things that we can just build ourselves, and we can build them really well, and that might be driven by the fact that we just have really deep subject matter expertise. I think on the buy side, it's kind of pretty vanilla. You might just want to acquire that capability because it's just really important to you. And then I think more so what's exciting is on the partner side. So, a great example of that is stuff that you're working on, Jose, in terms of like sports clippings and automating that and providing that as a service. That's really exciting, and it may be something that we definitely think about. But to your question, isn't maybe a priority just yet, but it should be. And so working with third parties and partners like yourselves means that actually we can bump that up in the list and kind of collaborate with people to deliver that sooner.
There was another question.
Is there kind of an ideal profile for a startup company in terms of its age, its size, and its space? And equally, the other side of that question is, what will make you, is there a common reason for deciding that partnership's not for you?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we definitely have some criteria in and around kind of the practicalities of working with those companies. I think fundamentally, certainly within my team, and there's a bunch of teams across Sky, Sky Labs being a great example that work with startups and other partners at different stages. But for us, and specifically within the teams that we operate in, like we are looking for teams that are slightly maturer, they have product and market, I mean, this is about trying to really integrate in with Sky and deliver a product and service that may be completely new. It may complement an existing product or service. And so, I think, in terms of like maturity and scale, certainly towards the latter end of that, they've gone through maybe really establishing their product market fit. They have a product in market, the technology has been de-risked. And I think fundamentally we're just looking for partners that really want to scale. So, I think that's the key thing, is that I think that's the sweet spot for us in terms of where we add value, in theory. But, I think, that they're probably the main ones that I certainly look for.
Before closing the session, I have a scary question for Jesse.
Scaling question.
Scary is the answer, which is actually, what do you prefer, a startup versus corporate culture?
What do I prefer?
And why?
And why?
Very
Okay. Me personally, I definitely prefer a startup culture, but I think there's a lot of glitz and glamour and LinkedIn posts about why startup culture is fantastic and thrilling, and it is. Don't get me wrong. It's energetic, it's exciting, it's full of energy, it's opportunistic, it's all of that. But there's the counter side that people rarely talk about, which is like it's also frightening, and it's also riddled with uncertainty, and you also run into challenges left, right, and center that Sky probably has dedicated teams solving for. You just don't even realize it happening in the background. And I think there is that counter story that it has to be something that you can just wholly and willingly embrace. And thankfully, I have that streak and that thread in me, so I don't care if I'm trying to fight with a payroll issue at 11 o'clock at night on a Saturday night. Maybe my wife might say something to me, but that's part of the story that you just do have to wholly embrace, and I think a startup does offer both elements of that.
Jesse, thank you so much. We could have not finished in a better way, I think. Thanks a lot to everyone for this session. It's been really a pleasure to be with you.